What's up, comrades? Nightwolf here, and welcome back to the channel. Welcome to another video. I just saw a video from a guy by the name of Comic Drake. He's another YouTuber. He has many videos about comic books, and he did a video about what can Western comics learn from manga, or as is more commonly known, or well, basically the Japanese version of comics. And he was talking about the constant fact that comic books for superheroes never end. They are ongoing, they are continuous, they last for generations and generations, and they continue to last, and they continue to go. And he made a lot of valid points about manga and the comic books in general. But when I heard it, there was something in my head that was making me think, wait a minute. I think I know the answer. I do. I think I know the answer as to why superhero comics, particularly superhero comics, never end. Why they never stop. Why they continue to go forward. And it goes back to what a lot of people consider superhero comic books in this current day and age as the modern mythology. That's what they are. They're the modern mythology. And I hit my mic. Sorry. I'm sure a lot of you guys know what a modern mythology is, or mythology is in general. That's the legendary stories that stand the test of time and are continually repeated and told over and over and over and over and over again. And that's kind of what superhero comic books are. Because a lot of modern mythologies, old mythologies are a hero's journey. The most simple and basic and most ancient form of storytelling. The story of a hero's quest and his inevitable end. And I'm sure you've heard about some of these mythologies. Maybe you've heard of them. Hercules, King Arthur, Beowulf. And there are even ones that are even older than those that date back even further in the history of mythology and writing. Stories of monsters, myths, legends, all this sort of stuff. And comic books now, currently, in the state they are now, superhero comic books are the modern equivalent. This is the reason why they don't end. Because, in all reality, those mythologies from the past never ended. The stories were retold over and over and over and over again. They were consistently and repeatedly told. This is the reason why some stories have different variations of endings, beginnings, middles. Like, where does the character come from? How does this happen? What does this part of the story do? Many stories like King Arthur actually have a lot of different varieties of stories of like how he meets his end, where, how certain battles end, and his origin. I mean, the first time I was exposed to the story of King Arthur was through a Disney cartoon called The Sword and the Stone. I didn't know who King Arthur was, but that's where I learned about the legend. That's where it started until I, actually saw other documentaries, other films, and reading through certain forms of history books and text. And the story changed. It evolved or grew, or things were added, things were taken away. That's kind of what a legend or a mythology does. That's how mythologies work out. That's how they start. And if you think about it, a superhero story, it doesn't have an end, but a creator will tell their story or their interpretation of the story, and then someone else comes in and tells their interpretation of a story. Good or bad, that's up for debate. But that's how the modern mythology is. Because in the past, that's what people used to do. Because back in the day, people didn't have printed media or anything that was written. Not everything was written down. A lot of legends and stories were just started up. Some of them were written down, but due to the fact that, printed copies weren't like readily available, some of them certain elements of the stories were either disappeared or changed, because the way that people used to tell the story is they'd sit at a campfire and just tell the story. That's kind of how a lot of the old legends work. And now in the modern age, the reason why a lot of Western comic books have constantly different writers is because, well, one, someone cannot continually write the story forever. Eventually someone's going to have to take over if the story wants to continue to grow or change or just continue to exist. Now, I will admit that, for one, these stories make money. And that's the reason why comic book companies are not going to stop making the superhero comic books. So why Marvel and DC are going to continue to make superhero comic books the main focal point. Because that's what they're known for. That's what they get their money for. Now, would it help them to add different types of stories into their lineup? Sure, they've done that. They've tried before. And honestly, I don't know if it would work. Because that's what Drake posed in his video. He was talking about, like, oh, can we do more different stories, like, some slice of life, some westerns, some, science fiction or fantasy stuff? Can we do more of those types of stories? But it falls under the same problem of it's still going to be a superhero book, no matter which way you slice it. And me personally, I think that is, considering the modern mythology of a superhero comic book, it should be allowed to continue until the inevitable day when, it's lost to the annals of history and, forgotten. It might happen. I doubt it, but it's kind of just one of those things. It's gonna keep on going until it probably doesn't make any money anymore. And even then, the stories will probably live on through fans and through other forms of media. But that was basically kind of what I was thinking when he posed the question of what they can learn. Now, I will admit that superhero comic books are a very hard thing to get into. I freely admit that. It is not an easy hobby to get into, but it's not impossible. Especially with the advantages of the internet. You can learn pretty much whatever you need to know about any storyline, any character, when it's referenced or used. But is it intimidating? Yeah, it kind of is. And I do feel bad that there are a lot of potential fans out there that just can't get into it because they're scared of it. They're intimidated by the sheer amount of mythology and whatnot. And what I would recommend is, if you're new to comic books and you're like, you don't know where to start with a character, try to find a bound volume of a story that represents or encompasses that character. That's probably your best bet. I'm sure you can look these up. I'm sure you can search them, but find a story that basically definitively tells you this is the character in a comic book setting. Or even the films are a great way to do this too. They give you basically the Cliff Note versions of what the character is all about, and at least with Marvel. DC currently not so much, but you can look up volumes or trades of certain books that kind of give you the understanding of who the character is as a person. That should be what you start with first. Who are they as a character? What do they represent? What do they mean? Find one of those stories that everybody would recommend for that character. Take that book, read it, and then from there you can start pretty much wherever you want. Just find a storyline, find a certain run of a character, and then just go with it and just read it in earnest. That's my recommendation for that. But I will say, yes, manga is a lot more accessible. It's a lot easier to get into. can find the volumes very easily, and also the one thing that manga has always had advantage of currently is affordability. It's a lot cheaper to buy a manga than it is sometimes to buy multiple comic books. And hey, in most manga-bound volumes, you get like 5 chapters of a story. So, and the stories do normally have a conclusion and an end. So, if you're someone who likes that kind of stuff, you can do that. But I guess that was all I really wanted to say. I thought this would be an interesting topic to discuss because he brought it up. And that just was my 2 cents on it. Tell me what you guys think. Let me know down in the comment section below. Hey, something fun and happy instead of the depressing things that we've been contending with on the channel. So I hope you enjoyed this. Please leave me a like, shoot me a comment, subscribe if you're new. I've seen a steady growth in the last couple days. Please keep that up. I greatly appreciate it. And of course, notifications. There are links down below for social media. If you do not follow me on social media, I suggest you do so because I post stuff there. Yeah. And share the video. That's pretty much all I have to say. And now I'm rambling at this point, probably because it's relatively late. Anyway, do not forget to raise your nerd flags high, and I'll see you next time. That will sound.